The champagne flute trembled in Naomi's manicured fingers as she watched her husband of 8 years charm another circle of investors. Darius Kingston had that magnetic quality that drew people in, the way he leaned forward when he spoke, his deep laugh that seemed to promise secrets, the casual confidence that made million-dollar deals feel like friendly conversations. She adjusted her emerald silk dress, the one he'd chosen for tonight's charity gala, and forced another smile at Mrs. Henderson's compliments about their perfect marriage. If only she knew. The weight of the pregnancy test hidden in Naomi's purse felt heavier than her grandmother's diamond necklace around her throat. "Naomi, darling," Vivian appeared at her elbow, her auburn hair catching the chandelier light. As Darius's business partner and her supposed best friend, Vivian had been the one constant through their marriage's ups and downs. "You look absolutely radiant tonight. That glow is unmistakable." Heat crept up Naomi's neck. She'd planned to tell Darius about the baby after the gala, somewhere private where they could celebrate properly. "I don't know what you mean." Vivian's knowing smile widened. "Oh, honey, I've been waiting for this moment for years. Does he know yet?" Before Naomi could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Darius. "Emergency at the office. Taking V to handle the Morrison contract. Don't wait up." Naomi's stomach clenched. The Morrison contract had been finalized weeks ago. She watched through the ballroom's tall windows as Darius's black Mercedes pulled away, Vivian's silhouette visible in the passenger seat. The champagne glass slipped from her nerveless fingers, shattering against the marble floor like her perfectly constructed world. Something was terribly, devastatingly wrong. The grandfather clock in their penthouse foyer chimed midnight as Naomi kicked off her heels, the sound echoing through rooms that suddenly felt too large, too empty. She'd left the gala early, claiming a headache that wasn't entirely fabricated. The baby, their baby, deserved better than this knot of anxiety twisted in her chest. Her fingers traced the pregnancy test through the silk of her purse. 8 weeks. She'd been carrying their child for 8 weeks while Darius worked late nights, took mysterious business trips, and came home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. The sound of keys jingling made her freeze. Darius stumbled through the door, his bow tie undone, lipstick, a shade too dark to be hers, smudged on his collar. "Naomi, thought you'd be asleep." His voice carried that careful tone of someone trying to sound sober. "The Morrison contract," she said quietly, watching his face. "How did it go?" A flash of something, panic, guilt, crossed his features before his lawyer's mask slipped back into place. "Complicated. Vivian's handling the restructuring. You know how these things are." She knew. She knew the Morrison contract was signed, sealed, and delivered. She knew Vivian's lipstick was Mac's Russian red, the same shade now decorating her husband's collar. She knew the pregnancy test in her purse would change everything, but maybe everything was already broken. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. Darius froze, his hand still on the doorknob. For a moment, she saw the man she'd married, the one who'd promised her forever in a courthouse ceremony because they were too in love to wait. Then his expression shuttered. "Are you sure?" The question hit her like a physical blow. Not joy, not excitement, not even surprise. Just doubt. As if she were some naive girl who couldn't read a pregnancy test. "Yes," she breathed, and watched her marriage crumble in real time. 3 weeks later, Naomi sat in her sister Eleanor's cramped apartment, surrounded by moving boxes and the debris of her former life. The divorce papers lay scattered across the coffee table like fallen leaves, evidence of dreams that had rotted from the inside out. Eleanor emerged from the kitchen, her scrubs wrinkled from a double shift at the hospital. "Any word from your lawyer?" "Darius is contesting everything." Naomi's voice was hollow, scraped raw from too many tears. "He says I'm not entitled to half of Kingston Associates because I never worked there. Claims the penthouse was his before we married." "That's not true." "Doesn't matter. He's got better lawyers." Naomi picked up a photo from the box beside her, their wedding day, both of them laughing at something ridiculous. She'd worn a simple white dress from Nordstrom, and he'd forgotten to shave properly. They'd been so young, so stupidly in love. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thought you should see this." Below it, a photo that made her blood freeze. Darius and Vivian tangled together on the leather couch in his office. The timestamp showed 2 months ago, right around the time Naomi had started planning their anniversary dinner, buying the pregnancy test, believing in their future. Another message. "There are more. Meet me at Cafe Luna in an hour. Come alone. Kay." Elena peered over her shoulder and cursed in Spanish. "Who's Kay?" Naomi stared at the photo until her vision blurred. 2 months. They'd been laughing at her for 2 months, probably longer, planning their affair while she planned their anniversary, choosing restaurants where they'd meet while she chose baby names. "I don't know," she said, but something deep inside her, something that had been dormant for too long, was finally stirring. "But I'm about to find out." The pregnancy test, now crumpled in the trash, had been negative after all. Just stress, the doctor had said, but maybe that was a blessing. Maybe she needed to be free to become someone new. Cafe Luna was tucked into a corner of the arts district, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place where struggling artists nursed single espressos for hours. Naomi chose a corner table, her hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea, eyes scanning every face that entered. At exactly 3 p.m, a man in his 30s approached her table. He was tall, lean, with the kind of precise movements that spoke of military training. His dark hair was shot through with premature silver, and his eyes held the weight of someone who'd seen too much. "Naomi Kingston." His voice was gravelly, careful. She nodded, her pulse quickening. "You're Kay." "Cale Morrison." He slid into the seat across from her, and the name clicked into place. The Morrison contract. The mysterious business deal that had been Darius's excuse for so many late nights. The client your husband and his partner have been defrauding for the past 6 months." His smile was sharp as a blade. "Turns out we have a common enemy." Naomi's mind raced. The contract was a setup from the beginning. They've been funneling money from my construction company into offshore accounts, thinking I was just another mark. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "But I've been watching, gathering evidence. The question is, what are you willing to do about it?" "I don't understand." Kyle slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were financial records, photographs, bank statements, a paper trail that painted a picture of systematic theft and betrayal. "Your husband and Vivian think they're untouchable. They've been planning to disappear with $12 million of my money and leave you holding the bag." The cafe seemed to blur around the edges. "Leave me holding what bag?" "The divorce papers you signed last week. They include a clause making you responsible for any outstanding business debts." His voice was gentle now, sympathetic. "They're setting you up to take the fall while they disappear to the Cayman Islands." Naomi's hands shook as she flipped through the evidence. Photos of Darius and Vivian at banks, private jets, luxury hotels, a life they'd built on lies and theft. "What do you want from me?" "Help me destroy them," Kyle said simply, "and I'll make sure you get everything you deserve." Naomi's reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like a stranger. Hollow-eyed, sharp-cheeked, a woman carved from marble and betrayal. It had been 2 days since her meeting with Cale, and she couldn't stop thinking about the evidence folder hidden beneath her mattress. Elena knocked on the door. "Naomi, your lawyer's here." Marcus Chen had been her divorce attorney for 3 months, a soft-spoken man who'd tried to prepare her for what he called an uphill battle. Today he looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "I have news," he said, settling into Elena's threadbare armchair. "And you're not going to like it." Naomi perched on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "How bad?" Darius filed an amended petition yesterday. He's claiming you knew about the financial irregularities at the firm and were complicit in hiding assets. Marcus's voice was carefully neutral, but she could hear the underlying tension. If he can prove it, you could face criminal charges. The room tilted. That's impossible. It doesn't matter what you did or didn't do. He's got documentation showing you signed off on several large transactions over the past year. Marcus pulled out a folder of papers. Your signature is on bank transfers, investment authorizations, even a loan application for $2 million. Naomi stared at the documents, her own signature staring back at her. She remembered signing papers for Darius, insurance forms, tax documents, what she'd thought were routine business matters. I trusted him. I know, but the court won't see it that way. Marcus leaned forward. Naomi, I think you need to prepare for the possibility that this goes beyond divorce court. The FBI is investigating financial crimes at Kingston Associates. The words hit her like physical blows. Prison, criminal charges. Her life destroyed not just by betrayal, but by her own naive trust. There's something else, Marcus continued. Darius and Vivian have retained Sullivan Associates. They're the best criminal defense firm in the city. Elite lawyers, federal investigations, criminal charges, and she was sitting in her sister's apartment with a public defender and a handful of crumpled tissues. But then she remembered Cale's words. Help me destroy them, and I'll make sure you get everything you deserve. Maybe it was time to stop being a victim. The law offices of Blackwood Associates occupied 3 floors of a gleaming downtown high-rise, all mahogany and marble that screamed old money. Naomi felt underdressed in her simple black dress, but Cale had insisted she look trustworthy, not wealthy. Remember, he murmured as they rode the elevator to the 32nd floor, you're here about your grandmother's estate, nothing more. The lawyer, Jonathan Blackwood, was exactly what central casting would order for distinguished attorney. Silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of confidence that came from generations of privilege. He spread papers across his conference table like a dealer shuffling cards. I apologize for the delay in contacting you, Mrs. Kingston. Your grandmother's estate was complex. He adjusted his glasses. She was quite specific about the timing of this inheritance. Naomi's confusion was genuine. I don't understand. My grandmother died when I was 12. Her estate was settled years ago. Rosa Castellano was a remarkable woman. She invested wisely, lived modestly, and apparently kept extensive records of her family's activities. Blackwood's smile was cryptic. She left specific instructions that this inheritance should only be activated if you ever found yourself in dire circumstances involving betrayal by a spouse. The words hit Naomi like a physical blow. How could her grandmother have known? The estate is worth approximately $15 million, Blackwood continued as if discussing the weather. However, there are conditions. The money must be used to right wrongs and restore honour to the family name. Kyle squeezed her hand under the table. This was the moment they'd planned for, the foundation of their revenge. But as Naomi stared at the inheritance documents, she remembered her grandmother's stern face, her stories about surviving the Great Depression, her warnings about trusting the wrong people. There's also this. Blackwood slid a sealed envelope across the table. She insisted you read it alone. Inside, in her grandmother's careful handwriting, Mia Cara Naomi, if you're reading this, then someone has broken your heart and tried to break your spirit. The money will help, but remember, the best revenge is not becoming like them. Use your power wisely. Love, Nonna. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. Somehow, from beyond the grave, her grandmother was still protecting her. What's the first step? She asked. The Crimson Rose sat on the corner of 5th and Main like a jewel box, all dark wood and stained glass, the kind of place where power brokers made deals over 30-year scotch. It was Darius's favourite restaurant, the place where he'd proposed, where they'd celebrated every anniversary, where he'd probably taken Vivian countless times. Now it was going to be Naomi's. "The owner is motivated," explained Patricia Vance, the real estate agent who specialized in restaurant acquisitions. "Giuseppe Rossetti built this place 40 years ago, but his health is failing. He wants to retire to Italy, and he's looking for someone who'll respect the legacy." Naomi walked through the dining room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors. She could picture Darius at their usual table by the window, the one where he'd slipped the engagement ring into her champagne flute 6 years ago. The memory should have hurt, but instead she felt nothing but cold determination. "The asking price is $2 million, Patricia continued, "but between you and me, I think he'd take less for the right buyer." $2 million, a fraction of her grandmother's inheritance, and a small price to pay for the perfect trap. "I'll take it," Naomi said. "Full asking price, cash offer, close in 2 weeks. Patricia's eyes widened. "Are you sure? Don't you want to review the financials, maybe bring in a restaurant consultant?" "I'm sure." Naomi turned to face the woman. "But I have one condition. I want to meet with Giuseppe personally. This needs to be handled with absolute discretion." That evening, she sat across from the elderly Italian man in the restaurant's private dining room. Giuseppe's hands shook slightly as he poured wine, but his eyes were sharp, assessing. "You're not what I expected," he said in accented English. "Most people who want to buy restaurants, they see dollar signs. You see something else." "I see justice," Naomi replied simply. Giuseppe nodded slowly. "My late wife, she always said the rose would know when the right person came along. She was very wise about people." He raised his glass. "To new beginnings, and to old debts being paid." As they toasted, Naomi felt a strange sense of peace. The first domino had fallen. Soon, everything would change. 3 months later, the Crimson Rose had been transformed. Under Naomi's direction and Kyle's strategic planning, the restaurant had become the hottest reservation in the city. She'd kept Giuseppe's recipes but added her own touches, a wine list curated by sommelier, entertainment from rising jazz musicians, and an ambiance that whispered of secrets and power. More importantly, she'd made herself invisible. As far as the public knew, the restaurant was owned by a shell company. Even the staff believed she was just another manager. Only Kyle and a select few knew the truth. "He's coming tonight," Kyle informed her as she adjusted the lighting in the main dining room. "Table 12, 8 o'clock. He made the reservation for 2. Naomi's pulse quickened. Table 12 was in the center of the restaurant, visible from every angle. Darius had always loved being seen, being the center of attention. "And Vivian?" "She'll be there. According to my source, they're celebrating the finalization of the Morrison contract." Kyle's smile was predatory. "They think they've gotten away with it." The irony was delicious. They were coming to celebrate stealing from the very man who now stood beside her, planning their downfall. But Naomi felt no satisfaction, only a cold, focused determination. "The divorce papers are ready?" she asked. "Signed, sealed, and updated to reflect your new circumstances." Kyle handed her a manila envelope. "Your lawyer did excellent work. Darius is going to be very surprised when he realizes what he's actually agreed to." The restaurant began filling with the dinner crowd. Politicians, business leaders, socialites, all the people who'd known Naomi as the quiet, supportive wife. Tonight, they'd see her differently. Tonight, they'd see her as she truly was. "Mrs. Kingston?" One of the waiters approached nervously. "Your guests have arrived." Through the kitchen's pass-through window, Naomi watched Darius enter the restaurant, his arm around Vivian's waist. They looked happy, relaxed, victorious. They had no idea they were walking into a trap that had been 3 months in the making. "Showtime," Kyle murmured. Naomi straightened her shoulders, smoothed her black dress, and walked toward the dining room. It was time for the final act. The dining room fell silent as Naomi emerged from the kitchen, moving with the grace of a predator approaching its prey. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a black cocktail dress that accentuated every curve, her grandmother's diamond necklace catching the light, her hair swept back to reveal the strong line of her jaw. Darius looked up from his menu, and she watched the colour drain from his face. "Naomi, what are you doing here?" "I work here," she said simply, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet restaurant. "Actually, I own here." Vivian's fork clattered against her plate. "That's impossible. You don't have any money." "Funny thing about assumptions," Naomi replied, signalling to the waiter. "They make people sloppy." The waiter approached with a silver tray bearing a single envelope. "Your final course, Mr. Kingston." Darius's hands shook as he opened the envelope. Inside were divorce papers, not the ones he'd manipulated her into signing, but new ones that told a very different story. Papers that reflected her newfound wealth, her ownership of the restaurant, and most importantly, her knowledge of his crimes. "You said I'd come crawling back," Naomi said, her voice steady despite the rage burning in her chest. "You said I'd never survive without you. You said I was nothing but a naive little girl who'd be lost without her big, strong husband." The restaurant's patrons leaned forward, sensing drama. Cell phones appeared discreetly, capturing every moment. By morning, this would be all over social media, the business pages, the society columns. "Naomi, please." Darius stood, his lawyer's instincts kicking in. "This is neither the time nor the place. This is exactly the time and place." She nodded to Cale, who stepped forward with a briefcase. "You see, while you were busy stealing from clients and planning your escape to the Cayman Islands, I was busy learning the truth about who you really are." Kyle opened the briefcase, revealing stacks of documents, photographs, and bank records. The Morrison construction account, the Henderson Trust Fund, the Yamamoto investment portfolio. Should I continue? Vivian shot to her feet. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, I can." Naomi's smile was sharp as glass. "Turns out, my naive little signature was on a lot of documents, including the ones that give me power of attorney over all assets acquired during our marriage." The trap was closing, and there was nowhere for them to run. 6 months later, Naomi stood in the penthouse she'd once shared with Darius, now legally hers again along with everything else. The FBI investigation had been swift and thorough. By the time federal agents arrived at Kingston Associates, they'd found the offices empty, the safe cleaned out, and 2 very desperate people trying to catch a midnight flight to Grand Cayman. "The sentencing hearing is next week," Kyle informed her, hanging up his phone. "Darius got 12 years for fraud, money laundering and conspiracy. Vivian got 8. Naomi nodded, feeling strangely empty. She'd thought victory would feel different, sweeter, more satisfying. Instead, she just felt tired. "And the clients they stole from?" "Fully reimbursed. Your grandmother's inheritance covered the losses, and then some." Kyle moved to stand beside her at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "You did good, Naomi. You saved a lot of people from financial ruin." The Crimson Rose had become more than just a restaurant. It was a symbol of reinvention, of a woman who'd refused to be broken by betrayal. Giuseppe had sent her a letter from Italy, telling her that his late wife would have been proud. The thought made her smile. "What will you do now?" Kyle asked. Naomi considered the question. The divorce was final, the criminals were imprisoned, and she had more money than she'd ever dreamed of. But more importantly, she had something she'd never possessed before, the knowledge that she was stronger than she'd ever imagined. "I'm thinking about law school," she said finally. "Turns out I'm pretty good at this justice thing." Kyle laughed, a sound that had become precious to her over the past months. "I can see it now. Naomi Kingston, attorney at law, defender of the betrayed, champion of the wronged. I like the sound of that." She turned to face him, this man who'd helped her find her strength, who'd shown her that trust could be rebuilt. "What about you? Any plans?" "I was thinking I might stick around," he said, his eyes warm. I hear the best restaurants in town are owned by fascinating women with mysterious pasts. Outside, the city sparkled in the evening light, full of possibilities and second chances. Naomi had learned that sometimes the best revenge wasn't about destroying your enemies, it was about becoming someone they could never tear down again. The naive girl who'd believed in fairy tales was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd learned that the only person you could truly count on was yourself, and sometimes, if you were very lucky, the allies you found along the way. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "Dinner Sunday? I want to hear about your new case." Naomi smiled, typing back, "Can't wait. I'll bring dessert from the Rose." Some stories ended with happily ever after. Others ended with something better, the promise of a future you'd built with your own hands, brick by brick, victory by victory. As she looked out at the city she'd conquered, Naomi Kingston knew which kind of ending she preferred. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe for more amazing content, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads.